shift our conversation, and we are excited to hear from Emily today, as she's going to talk about courageous conversations. And this is just, I have to admit, such a topic, as we all know, now more than ever, right? Whether it be the race discussion, whether it even be the COVID discussion, right? I mean, there are so many different ways that we are engaging in conversation. And so, Emily, we're just so excited to see what you've got to share with us. And hopefully you should be able to share your screen. And we're going to get into this topic a little bit here for a few minutes.
Yes. So today's topic is definitely one that speaks to the times we're in, as Steph just mentioned. And just again, by way of introduction, my name is Emily McHugh, the Regional Program Coordinator for the Treasure Coast region and Palm Beach County. And the topic, courageous conversations, saying what needs to be said, knowing how and when. And really, the saying what needs to be said has to do with the context and the situation obviously you're in. Knowing how is where we're kind of going to focus more so today, and it will also inform some of the things that you might want to say as well. And when is always now. It's always now. You want to have these conversations sooner than later. Time is of the essence. So going into this, we will think about the fact that you can apply this. We're going to deconstruct what a courageous conversation is, and then go into a framework that you can apply to any conversation. And so the first question is, why does it take courage in the first place to have a conversation of any kind? And what comes to mind is it depends on the level of discomfort that might be involved. So if you're comfortable talking with your friends, having a casual conversation, then there's not much courage needed because you're just talking as you normally would. But anytime there's a challenge or some kind of issue that might create some discomfort, that's where the courage levels quotient seems to go higher. And especially in light of the times we're in, where people are having conversations on many levels, there's been a lot of discussion on how to have those conversations. And so that's what we're going to delve into today, that framework. So why the discomfort? Because something is at stake. You have something to gain or something to lose. If you don't have anything to lose or gain, you don't really care. But something at stake, could it be your job? Could it be your position? Could it be something? Then you're going to take it a little bit more to heart. So you have to ask yourself, what is at stake in this conversation that you're about to have? So here's a quote that I found by Claude Bernal. He is a renowned French physiologist, and he is known for many quotes. And this one says, "It is what we think we know already that often prevents us from learning." It is what we think we know already that often prevents us from learning. And when you see a quote like this, you might say, well, could someone be arrogant? Could someone be conceited to think they already know? And so what are these preconceived notions? What are these default assumptions that we might be making? And this is an opportunity to challenge that. So what exactly is it that we need to learn? What do we need to learn? Well, before we get into what we need to learn, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to learn? Do we want to understand? And it cannot be assumed that we even want to learn, because some people don't. So, which I don't think is any of you, because you're here. But the reality is that there are people who do not want to learn. And we have to accept that. We can't force anyone to learn or to want to understand, but hopefully they will, and then we can go forward with that conversation. It takes intent, the foundation. So what is the purpose of the conversation? It's all about your intention. What are you intending to accomplish by having a conversation in the first place? Is your intent to understand? Is it to learn? Is it to share? Is it to teach? What are you intending to do, or what are you hoping will happen from this conversation that you're having? And this is very critical, because many times we enter some conversations carelessly, or they may just happen. We didn't plan for them, but if it's a conversation where we just kind of treat it lightly, we need to have more care. And this is about exercising the care, not being, what shall I say? Not being nervous in terms of being on eggshells, but just exercising that extra intent of wanting to have a positive effect. So we have a cast of characters here that we're going to talk about. We're putting this conversation today within a business context, since most of you here, you're business owners, business women, and we want to see how these relationships, these conversations play out in different scenarios. So as you know, the world is a stage, and you can add to this list, whether you're an employer to employee, employee to employer, employee to employee, business to customer, and of course, you to you, you to you. A conversation you have with yourself is probably the first and most crucial and most courageous before you can even deal with anyone else. And you can certainly add to this list. You can add to the list, add whoever you want, add your husband, add your wife, add your brother, add your sister, your son, your child, and on, and you get the idea. But again, today we're talking about the business context specifically. So there are challenges that require courage. So why do we need courage, as I said before? So let's look at a little bit of these scenarios. So if you have an employer to employee, what are some challenges that could exist? Well, there are things called performance reviews. There are crises that may come up in a business from time to time. And again, add to the list. This is not at all exhaustive, but it's meant to just kind of trigger some ideas or spark some thoughts that you can say, okay, well, this is my situation, and you add that to the list. An employee to the employer, maybe the culture of the company. Someone might not be comfortable with the culture, or they're looking to get a raise, and it's a little challenging. How do I ask for the raise? Will I get the raise? An employee to employee, you have to work together as teams. Are you comfortable working together? Do you like each other? Or is one the slacker and one doing all the work and you're carrying the burden? You know, that type of thing. That's always the refrain from teams. Is there harassment going on any level? And is there bullying going on? And then as far as business to customer, might I have made an error in a bid that I put in for a contract? Might I need to increase my price and feel very awkward doing that? Or some other scenario. And then the you to you, certainly not last, but definitely not least. Do you have self-doubt? Are you second guessing yourself? And you just got to kind of pause and take that in, because that is going to have an impact on all these other conversations. So start with yourself, start with what's going on in your own mind, and then you can go forward into some of these scenarios. So what is the obstacle that can prevent us getting through the challenges? We have these barriers, either known, real, or imagined, that exist, again, in your own mind, in the other person's mind, or the circumstance just seems so challenging in of itself. So what are the barriers? And the goal is to overcome these. This wall right here looks kind of insurmountable, but we're about to see that it's not. That's the goal. Okay, so now if you don't overcome those barriers, you're going to deal with some consequences. So whether you like to want to deal with it or not, it won't change the fact that a problem exists or an issue exists just because you don't know or want to deal with it. There are definite consequences. So for your business, if you don't deal with a performance issue, you may not grow as a company. You might get bad PR if you handle a crisis incorrectly or poorly. As employees to employers, if you don't deal with that culture, you can have a toxic environment which corrodes your business. And of course, if you don't pay people properly, they become unmotivated. They want to leave, they want to do other things, or they slack off. And then of course, if you're an employee dealing with each other, you want to enjoy your colleagues that you work with. And of course, now that many of us are working remotely, maybe we don't have to deal with that as much anymore. I don't know. But you still have people you communicate with. And the happier people are, the easier it is to retain them as employees and feeling appreciated and the satisfaction of doing their work. And clearly, if harassment is not dealt with, you could have a lawsuit on your hand. So clearly, that we can steer clear of that happening. And then for business to customer, you could lose your customer if you don't deal with them well, and ultimately lose money, and could even lose your business. So you have to see that these things can really have a domino effect. And for you as a person, well, you can lose opportunities. You lose time by being indecisive. So it has all of these courageous conversations have definite consequences. Okay, with that being said, what do we want to achieve? This flow. We want to have a smooth and calm flow and get over that big old barrier to where things can flow. The conversation flows, your energy flows because you're releasing that tension. Your intention is positive, so more than likely that will flow through as well. So the whole idea of allowing a space for dialogue to take place where things can flow. All right, now, so let's get into the conversation of the steps. What is the courageous conversation framework? So we have here a 5-step process to be prepared and informed. And that's the thing. Many times we're afraid of certain conversations because we are not prepared. We're not sure what we're getting into. We don't know how to handle it. We are fear of all kinds of things, as I was mentioning before. So if you have a sense of a structure, any single conversation that's challenging, you can apply the same structure to it. So what I encourage you to do, if you have a little, what do you call those things? Those cards. Help me out with the term, I can't remember. Index card, thank you. Take that out and write 1 to 5 on it. Keep it in your little purse or your wallet. And when you're about to have one of these conversations, whip it out and remind yourself, because it's practice that's going to make this make sense. So you want to recognize and inquire about the situation you're in. That's number 1. Number 2, you need to have a certain amount of willingness and humility to engage. Number 3, you need to take the time that's necessary to do this. Number 4, you have to have faith in a positive outcome. And number 5, you want to express gratitude for the lesson you're about to learn. So let's go into them a little more closely. Again, these lists that I have here are not exhaustive. You can continue to add to them, but I had to stop somewhere on the page. So the first one, with step 1, is to recognize and inquire what. You want to recognize that there's an issue. You want to admit and acknowledge. How many times some people said, well, they never said they were sorry. They never even acknowledged they were wrong. And right there, it's a non-starter. The discussion goes nowhere because you won't even admit there's something to discuss. So that is very critical. And whether you might not see it, if someone else feels there's something to discuss, then there's something to discuss. Okay, so it's a two-way street, not just from your perspective. The other thing is you don't want to be jumping to hasty conclusions. That's where we run into problems. Just kind of try to bring it down and just give the other person a chance. And here's one that's really critical. Do not fear anger. If someone is angry, don't be afraid of that, because there's a place for anger. Maybe there's a reason they're angry, and so you want to deal with that. So being angry in of itself is not a problem. It's what you do with the anger that's the problem, but not the anger itself. You want to get behind the anger. So you want to seek to understand, as I think Dale Carnegie wrote, or no, Stephen Covey, I think in his book, seek to first understand before trying to be understood. Try to get into what the other person is trying to say to you first before being so eager to tell them what you think. And ask straightforward questions. I don't understand. I really need you to help me to understand what the situation is. And the tone, oh my Lord, tone, be careful of tone.
Yes.
Oh, tone is so critical. And it's not like asking the question with an accusatory tone. It's just being straightforward. Help me to understand the situation. Simple. And avoid condescension at all costs. People don't know condescension. You're just, again, it goes back to the neutrality.
Mm-hmm.
You're not bringing anything to bear. You're just recognizing and inquiring. That's the first step. Number one. Number two, you have to have a willingness and humility to talk about the situation, not avoid it, and confront your own assumptions. You ever hear someone say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to go there. And just thinking by the virtue of just saying that, you can dismiss a problem or an issue. Absolutely not. That's a very immature way to approach it, and it shows a distinct lack of emotional intelligence, which is what we need to cultivate in order to have these kinds of conversations. So we have to be willing to go there, but go there with a sense of respect and approaching it with the desire to resolve, not to attack or accuse. And then you want to hear, listen, and be willing to learn new vocabulary. We have certain default vocabulary that we use without even being aware of the impact it has. So reevaluating the words that we're using and the vocabulary and how that's coming off to other people. And also understanding that you don't have to agree. Whoever said you have to agree, but you can still listen and you can still learn. You can learn from someone you don't agree with. And that's why a lot of people don't want to talk about politics or religion, because they're more interested in agreeing than learning or understanding or sharing. And that's why those topics are so difficult. But they wouldn't be so difficult if we applied some of these techniques. And then there's an amazing fact that I discovered. We are all the same. We are the same. Okay, your issue today is my issue tomorrow, or vice versa. So we have different shoes, I like to put it. And we may be walking, we're walking in different shoes.
You're still walking.
You're still walking, exactly. And you have somewhere you want to go. You want to get somewhere. Okay, so step 3, you want to take time necessary to find a solution. You want to be patient with the process and realize that one conversation mightn't solve it. It may not resolve this issue. It may take several more conversations or a series of conversations, or I don't know, months, I don't know, whatever the time is. But the point is, start the process. Start the process and you will get where you need to go. Do the research to get the facts straight. Again, that goes back to the assumption. Take the time to go do some research. Go learn some history. Go get some facts together. And then get help. If you are lost or don't understand or feel like you're in over your head with whatever the situation may be, get some help. Get some help to gain clarity. And all of these things that they have here take some time. They may take some time. Put in the work. It will pay off. Step number 4, have faith in a positive outcome. Well, I like to say that intention guides resolution. So if you have a positive intent, the chances of you having a positive resolution are very high. And I know that in today's conversations and a lot of the topics that are going on, some people feel nothing good will come, or this will just be for now, and then we're going to go back to how things were, and it will blow over and nothing will truly change. Well, my response to that is that may be the case for somebody, but it doesn't have to be the case for me, because I keep the conversation going if I feel something needs to be discussed. And so it's not about who else is out there talking. I can talk to myself. Remember, you and you needs to have a conversation. So I think that's a very critical way to think about it. Because each of us, we all are a life force here, and we have something to bear on the conversation. We all have something to say and something to contribute. And if we look at it from that perspective, I think we will all can grow for the better for it. So this goes into the idea of accepting the responsibility to see it through and to make it better, not just give up because it's hard. That's why you need the courage, because it is hard sometimes. And realize that it's incumbent upon me. And then avoid the second guessing. So second guessing kills faith. It kills belief. It makes you doubt why you have faith in the first place. So if you have faith, you have faith, and then you just keep going. And so step number 5, And this one might have been a bit surprising to some. Express gratitude for the lesson. Yes, because you've just grown from here to there. Comfortably. You didn't dissolve. So you actually went there and it was okay. It was okay. And each conversation builds more courage for the next one. And it decreases the stress. Again, you have this framework, so you don't have to be stressing over, oh no, I'm going to say the wrong thing. You don't have to worry about saying the wrong thing if your intent is noble. And even if you may choose words that are not most appropriate, you can correct it. You can learn from it. You can say, I'm sorry, let me choose another word. Let me expand my vocabulary. All right. And then remember, it creates more flow. So if you're grateful for this lesson, your flow is increasing in whatever which way, whether with your employees, your employer, your customer, yourself. And that expansion of flow is what we're trying to do, because that removes the tension and the friction. So in summarizing our 5-step framework, going back to this original slide, recognize and inquire, be willing and have the humility to do it, take the time necessary, have faith in a positive outcome, and express gratitude for the lesson. And you can express gratitude to the person you're speaking to. It doesn't matter if it's an employee, it doesn't matter the rank. And what tends to happen is people in a position of authority feel that they must always exert that authority. We need to let that down and just talk as normal people. If you have to exert some type of, yield out some punishment or whatever you have to do, that's separate. The first thing is get the communication, and then you determine the next steps, if that's what you need to do. I don't like the word punishment. Sorry to be so negative with that word, but whatever needs to come, whether it's a raise, hey, forget the punishment, raise, you got to give them the raise. All right, so the next step, make your own list. This is just to get you started in the thought process. Apply this to yourself, your situation, your circumstance, whether it's your business or your life in some way. And remember this quote, it is what we think we know already that often prevents us from learning. So think about what is it that you already know that you think might be getting in the way, or someone might tell you what that is. And then finally, I have a new hashtag, people. I am the same. Or actually two, we are the same. Again, remember, different shoes, that maybe could be another hashtag. But we are the same, and we all need that courage to confront what we have to deal with in our respective lives. So with that, I thank you for listening and watching today. Remember to reach out to us on our website, wbecflorida.org. You have my email and my phone number, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can rewatch this on YouTube when it is posted. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
Very, very nicely done, Emily. Thank you for taking such a difficult subject and giving us a wonderful framework. I can see how the same framework can be used, as you said, with all the different cast of characters. And I really liked that you said to use the same framework on ourselves, because the number one challenge that especially that women business owners, is that we're very critical of ourselves, right? So if we start with intention, if we look for a positive outcome, if we are grateful in our own conversations with ourselves, that will go a very, very long way to transferring and translating that to how we deal with others. Compliments to you, Emily. This was wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
I have to call out the thing that you said about do not fear anger.
Yeah.
It was such an eye opener, because you're right. It's not really the anger that causes the issue. When you said that it's how we respond to it, that just, I don't know. It's funny to think, it's like your quote at the end too. I mean, you know, 45 years old, right? I can still learn because I've never, that just, wow. I feel, I wish I'd known that earlier in life, but now I have it to go forward because that just was amazing. I don't know about you guys, but because that's truly what it is, right? I mean, we fear the anger, so we don't engage, and then things don't happen, right, that need to happen. So, oh my gosh, Emily, just thank you. I took so many notes. To our community, you're going to be seeing Miss Emily's beautiful face with these quotes coming out, because I'm going to use a bunch of these in our communications, because there were some amazing ones. I don't know if there's any other comments from the windows.
Yeah, I was going to say, I liked where you said to acknowledge the fact that it's a difficult conversation, like acknowledge it first. And I remember a situation I was in where I was the night editor that night at the Orlando Sentinel. And then I walked in the next day and my boss didn't like a decision that had been made. And she pointed at me in the hall and she said, there'll be hell to pay. It sounded like Dickens. And she said that in front of a bunch of people. Right. And she had this British accent, and I was scared out of my mind. I mean, it was like, you know, death coming to get me. And so I went and sat back down in my chair and I thought, well, you know what, I can't just let that go. So I went into her office and I closed the door and I said, Anne, I sense that you're upset with me. Which kind of made her laugh. And then I said, can we talk about it? And then it turned out to be a lesson for both of us, you know, on how the decision was made. It wasn't anybody's fault. It's something happened, you know, after deadline that came out. But anyway, so it was a really interesting, I had to acknowledge first, I sense that you're upset with me.
I think it's a great way to put it. And also the idea that you diffused it. And diffusing anger is a wonderful technique to employ, for sure. That's a great example.
And thank you so much to Emily for that phenomenal presentation. As we all know, this is now more than ever, we are having to engage in courageous conversations on various different levels. And so we will make sure if you're on today, you will get that. If you're on Facebook, you got to go over and join our group. It's free, and you'll get the link in there to the presentation. But otherwise, we just want to thank you guys for joining us, for opening your window with us and letting the fresh air of all of our conversation and community come into your doors. So thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.